This big problem is water. We were struggling a lot. I'm Lena Mahlodi Boya. I am the site manager of Majaji Daycare. From the beginning, we were struggling with water. Sometimes we buy water from the donkeys. Sometimes we hire a buggy with a big drum. Yesterday when they arrived here, I was so surprised. I feel like crying. Because water is the first thing we can use it on the place. Drinking, washing, cooking. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Our problem is solved. I must help other people the way you helped me.
Getting the right nutrition is essential to achieving and maintaining good health. Yet accessing balanced meals that also support health challenges and fulfill personal tastes is not always as easy as it should be. At Mom's Meals, our passion is to provide nourishment and deliver wholesome meals to the homes of those who need better nutrition to support their health and wellness, no matter where they live. It's the reason we've built our business from our own personal roots, caring for our clients as we do our own family and loved ones. Our menus are designed by professional chefs and registered dietitians to taste great and support the nutritional needs of common health conditions. Clients get to choose every meal, every order. Meals are delivered to any address, no matter how remote. Simply place your order, receive your delivery, heat, and enjoy. To learn more or view the wide variety of refrigerated meals available, visit momsmeals.com.
Well, hello. My name is Michael Morain, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to the next episode of the Iowa Stops Hunger podcast. This is an ongoing initiative of business publications, the Business Record and DSM Magazine. And I'm so delighted to welcome both of you here today. You are champion problem solvers who could probably solve any number of problems, but you happen to be solving food and hunger issues right now. So I want to just jump into it. Tami, you can go first, and then we'll have Kathy introduce yourself, but tell us who you are.
Well, I'm Tami Nielsen. I'm the president and CEO of Food Bank of Iowa. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. And Kathy?
And I'm Kathy Underhill, the CEO of the Des Moines Area Religious Council, known as DMARC.
All right. Give us just a snapshot of what DMARC does.
Yeah, so DMARC has been around for about 74 years. Was started by a group of faith leaders. So we are an interfaith organization. For the last 50 years, we have focused on food security in Greater Des Moines. So we have a network of 13 food pantries that serve people from all over the state. We don't have any boundaries. And we also do interfaith work and policy and advocacy work.
All right. That's a big job. Yes. Tami, tell us about the Food Bank of Iowa.
Yeah, well, the Food Bank of Iowa is a Feeding America food bank, and we cover 55 of Iowa's 99 counties, and so we go all across the state. We provide food to 700 partners, 13 of which are we share with Kathy, the DMARC network, and we provide food to them, and they hand that directly to our neighbors in need.
In that food insecurity landscape, how do your organizations overlap and work together?
Yeah, so I think about it as we're kind of interwoven, that we each bring a piece of the puzzle together and we work together to kind of create the whole picture of food security.
Yeah, and I would echo that. We absolutely could not meet our mission without partners like DMARC. We're kind of like the wholesaler, if you want to think of it that way, where we have a giant distribution center. We have 12 trucks on the road every day delivering directly to doors of partners. And so we order food by the truckload. We have racking to the ceiling, and we distribute about 2.6 million pounds of food to those 700 partners every month.
Mm-hmm. Hunger, obviously, is an ancient challenge. People have been fighting it for a long, long time. What does 2026 look like? What are the particular issues that you're facing now?
You want to go first?
I can. I think we're going to agree on an awful lot here. 2026 has been filled with, and 2025 too, has really been filled with a lot of challenges, a lot of external changes in our world. There have been economic changes, and folks just are having even a more difficult time meeting the need. Previously, really before April of 2022, where federal pandemic relief era benefits were reverted back to pre-pandemic levels, we'd really seen we were making strides. And then February or April of 22 happened, and really we've seen month over month need increase. There's just constant record-breaking surge in need. People are having difficulty right now, even just with gas prices and food prices. And while there's no pantry to go get your gas, we can help alleviate that squeeze that folks are seeing with providing them food. The food that we used to provide previously, 5, 6, 7 years ago, was more emergency-based, I would say, across our network. And it's the same rural, urban, across those 55 counties, where now what we're seeing is it is supplemental and necessary for folks to visit pantries every month, not just as an emergency need. We're just in a state of emergency, really. So that's what I would say.
I would agree with all of that. And I would add one of our biggest challenges is HR 1, the passage of HR 1. That is creating the largest, deepest cuts to the SNAP program in its history. And it is devastating for family budgets. It's also potentially devastating to the state's budget because there's cost shifts from the federal government to state budgets that have very, very serious implications. So the benefits are lower, they're harder to get, some people are excluded, and it's going to cost the state more.
If people want to write their representatives, their senators, what are the nuggets of that policy that you would change if you could just wave a magic wand?
Yeah, so I'm very practical and realistic. And so I know that the policies are probably, what's written in there is not going to change as much as I would love it. But I think that one thing that can happen that is realistic is that it can be delayed. So implementation of certain things like the cost shift to states could be delayed. That would be my recommendation. I think another challenge we've had this year is the restrictions on food choice in the SNAP program in Iowa. Has created a lot of confusion, and I know it's been a real cost to retailers to implement.
I'd like to take just a quick moment to thank our sponsors with Farmers Mutual Hail. It's an Iowa-based company that was founded in 1893, and ever since they have been protecting America's farmers with expertise and products and support. And we are so grateful for their sponsorship of this program. If you would like to learn more, you can check out all the details at fmh.com. I have heard from your customers or clients that it often feels very arbitrary, that the rules are, the fine print doesn't seem to make sense. Can either of you share an example of somebody who's trying to figure out what's fair game and what's not, and how that affects what they eat and their everyday routine?
Yeah, you bet. So there's kind of two pieces. It was billed as no more soda and candy in SNAP, which at a high level makes a lot of sense, right? I would argue, no one's going to say that soda is good for us. It's something that's really nice to have once in a while. It's a great treat on a hot summer day. But I think when we determine that certain people can't have certain things, that does not set well with me. The restrictions are based on the tax code. So Iowa's tax code about what's taxable and what's not. They're very, very intricate. I don't know if they're arbitrary, but they're very, very intricate. I would say an example would be I cannot buy a cup of cut up fruit that comes with a spoon, but I can buy an individual slice of cake in a clamshell. So because there's an exception for anything containing flour, I could buy a Twix bar because it has flour, but I couldn't buy a very healthy granola bar. So I think that's when you're hearing people saying it feels arbitrary. I would agree with that. And I think that, oftentimes policymakers, elected officials they want to solve a problem that they see, which is fantastic. And that's what we elect them to do. But if they're not getting sufficient input, if you're closest to the problem, you're also closest to the solution. And so if we kind of step back away from this and say our goal is we want everyone to have sufficient nutritious food, and we really want to minimize unhealthy food in people's diets, I think there's probably more effective and efficient ways to get there than the path Iowa has chosen.
I want to circle back a little bit to the delay of costs from the federal government to the state. Can you unpack that a little bit, what that means?
Yes, and I'll try not to get too policy nerd on you. But the biggest thing is there is something called error rates in the SNAP program. So SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, for those that don't know, you have to kind of climb 3 hills to qualify. So the first one is you have to fill out an application. The second one is you have to go through an interview process. And the third one is you have to provide all kinds of documentation proving what you've said is true. So it's not easy to get. In fact, we're at an 18-year low in Iowa for the number of people that are eligible that are participating. So it's almost like, think about SNAP, it's almost like doing your taxes, where there's you have your income and then you have deductions, and it gets complicated. SNAP is exactly the same way. They've made the program, I would say, unnecessarily complicated, because it's like many things, it's a patchwork of rules that no one would design it in total the way it is today. So the cost shift in HR1 is really around error rates. And I've heard some rhetoric around, fraud, waste, and abuse. The reality of that is that error rates are, it could be that, let's say that I report, because I have to report as a SNAP recipient within 10 days, any changes to my household. So that eligibility worker is saying, okay, well, there were 5 people in your household, now there's 4. I need to recalculate the amount of money you can get on your SNAP for SNAP benefits. Or I do gig work. I drive for DoorDash or, Amazon or whomever. So my income fluctuates. So it is honest errors that if we go over 6%, and it can go either way, it can be overpayments to people or underpayments, then all of these penalties start kicking in, which would literally cost the state of Iowa tens of millions of dollars that I don't think we have. And then that's going to put the legislature at a really hard crossroads. Again, we want these programs to be error-free, but the error rates are, it's very small when you think about the totality of the program. And again, this isn't fraud. Most of the fraud that occurs in SNAP actually occurs at the retailer level. It's not the individual committing fraud. It's more of a retailer level issue. But the cost shift to the states is going to be extreme. Right now, the benefit is 100% federally funded. So if I get $100 in SNAP benefits loaded onto my electronic benefit card, that's 100% federally funded. And the administration of the program comes 75% from the federal government. It comes 50% from the federal government and 50% from the state. With this cost shift, it's going to go 75-25. So all of a sudden, the state has to pick up another 25%. And if they go over on their error rate, they're going to have to pay a portion of that benefits too. So it's not a great policy for states.
That's a good temperature check for 2026.
This week's Hunger Insight is presented by Mom's Meals.
Tami, you've been working in this sphere for a long time in Iowa. When did you start with the food bank?
2016.
Okay. Over those 10 years, what has changed the most from your perspective here in Iowa?
Well, the need has certainly changed. When I started at the food bank, we were distributing about 600,000 pounds of food a month. And now, like I said earlier, it's about 2.6 million. So we've gained another 2 million pounds of distribution every month. We're seeing that it's more working people now that just can't make ends meet. In fact, the majority of neighbors served are working and they're doing everything right. They just still can't make ends meet. Certainly the policy change to SNAP and those SNAP benefits. SNAP is the single most effective way to end hunger and food insecurity in the United States. And so having that now change so much and create a lot of uncertainty for folks who are already just trying to make ends meet and do their best. And it's caused uncertainty among, retailers and even policymakers now are like, well, I didn't realize that was in there. There's just a lot of uncertainty around that program, but we know the program works. Another change that we have seen is the change in USDA support. Food Bank of Iowa is 100% donor funded. We don't get government funding. However, we do get government commodities in the form of USDA foods. And it's the emergency food program, that the TFAP program that is funded from the federal government. And, about 18 months ago or so, that made up about 25 to 30% of our inventory at any given time. During the pandemic, there were periods of time where it made up over 50% of our inventory. And currently it's about 10% of our inventory. So we're getting less USDA food at a time where we need more. We're also purchasing more food at a time where food has never been higher in cost. We spend currently more per month on purchasing food than we did the entire year of 2019. And it's just a really difficult place to be in because the need has surged and a lot of other things have shifted that make doing this work even harder and getting the amount of food out to the people who need it at the place where they need it.
Are there any numbers that are going in the right direction?
Currently, no. Somebody asked me the other day, how are things, are they better or worse, than they had been at this time last year? Well, they're worse. And so much of it is outside of our control. I've got a fantastic team. We have wonderful partners. Everybody's doing great work. So I really want to highlight that we have wonderful, wonderful partners. We have great community support. Everybody's doing their best to make it better, but it is just increasingly more difficult.
Kathy, I know you have your previous job was in Colorado, and I want to ask both of you this. Are there ideas or programs that you would like to steal from other places or that we can implement here that you think might make a difference?
I think, and I've worked on hunger in a number of states, most recently Colorado, and I'm big on not reinventing the wheel. If we can take something, we can big barrel steer, let's do it. I think on the charitable food front in Iowa, things are done incredibly well. I think my caveat always is, for nonprofits to remember that being a nonprofit is a tax status and not a strategy. And so, if you want to go buy something at the store, if you go to the store and they're not open when you need them to be open and they don't have the right product at the right price, they lose your business. Nonprofits don't have that same motivation inherent in the business model. And so a lot of times I think we lose sight of who we're there to serve and how, and really deeply listening to the customer or neighbor to understand what they need and how we can best deliver against that. And so I think that would be my biggest encouragement is really deep listening and deep understanding. Things are started by people with great intentions. and then they can kind of morph a bit. So I would say, at DMARC, we started an advisory council of folks that currently use our Southside DMARC. And it's been wonderful. We did an application process, and they come once a month. We meet in the evenings. We provide dinner. We provide them with gift cards to honor their time and expertise. And we co-create the agendas. And I knew it was going to go well when the second month, a woman showed up and she had a notebook with her with an entire list of items, that she wanted to discuss. And so I was like, all right, we're on to something here. And like at the last meeting, we talked about budget. I said, this is how much I have to spend on food. And that number isn't going to change, but how should I spend that number? What do you need? Do you want me to spend part of that on non-food items, like personal hygiene items, cleaning supplies? What about, culturally different food? What about higher quality food? Because I've been surveying low-income people for more than 20 years around the issue of hunger. And it has never changed what people want. Every survey in every location, it has never changed, not once. The number one thing people want is fresh and frozen meat. Period. End of story. Which makes sense. It's the most expensive thing.
Yeah.
And so, how do you say, okay, do you want me to spend more on frozen meat? That means I'm going to have less of something else, and it's going to be a smaller quantity of the other things. But if that's what people want, then that's what we should deliver against, even if it means that we say, well, last year we distributed, 1 million pounds, and this year we only distributed 800,000, but it was because we provided a higher cost item. We have to be ready to have that flexibility, I think, to really deeply listen.
Tami, when you talk with your colleagues, your counterparts from other parts of the country, are there programs that you would like to replicate here?
One thing that we've wanted to do for quite a long time, and we came very close to getting it started, and then COVID hit. We were working with a big hospital system and looking into creating a food as medicine program, because we know that healthy nutrition is preventative medicine. Keeping people healthy, it's easy. It's easier with nutritious food. And so we were curating a program where we had, a focus on somebody who has cardiac issues and somebody who has diabetes, and we were going to start there. We had the whole thing just ready to go. And then COVID hit, their funding backed out. A lot of those people left their positions, and we have not been able to fully create one of those programs now. Now we have some where we'll go to clinics or different areas where folks are getting health care, but we're kind of on the cusp of really blowing that up again. And so really looking forward to helping people, to invest in their health with the food. I know years ago, the state of Minnesota, we did some research and worked closely with them. They had some Medicaid funding that was allocated to food banks for food as medicine. And it was a very effective program, and it kept people from, re-entering the hospital or becoming ill, chronically, because they had food that was of high nutritional value. They weren't making a decision on whether they should buy, 10 packs of ramen noodles or should they buy, meat, eggs, and produce. You try to get as many meals as you can with what you have, and oftentimes those are, items of lesser nutritional value. So if we had some state funding or federal funding that would invest in using healthcare dollars, investing in proper nutrition for folks who need that, that would just be such a huge game changer. It's a dream, and we're putting it into place at a smaller level, but we're getting more and more into that.
Kathy, you mentioned that sometimes the folks with some of the best ideas are the people who are closest to the problem. Many people listening to this podcast are business leaders, civic leaders who are not frequenting food pantries. Yes. How can leaders like that help? What do you need from the business community, the civic leadership community? How can people help in the most effective way?
Yeah, I think that if they're on the board of a nonprofit, to really ask those kind of probing questions about how are we getting feedback? What are our feedback loops? So that's my quickest answer. I think that we as a state and frankly as a country need to have very frank conversations about the scope of this problem and about what is the right role for government, federal, state, and local. What's the right role for the business community? What's the right role for the faith community? What's the right role for individuals? That used to be much clearer. We as a country, I feel like, had a good kind of understood agreement on that. Those lines have continued to get mushier and mushier. And we talked about cost shifts from the federal to the state level. I feel like on issues like hunger, it's just been cost shifting amongst those sectors. And so that's what I would really welcome is like, let's have those big kind of hard conversations about what is the right role, who, and to what level, to what extent, what role can everybody play? I'm a big believer that, many hands make light work, but we also have to come to some sort of an agreement on that. I think the other thing is for business leaders to really think about their expertise and how they can lend them to nonprofits. So oftentimes companies will come and volunteer with Food Bank of Iowa, with us, with other, which we love. We love having the big groups come in, especially like right now with the letter carriers food drive and all the food. But we would love skill-based volunteers. So someone is a professional in logistics, help us. Someone is an actuary, help us. I mean, the things that you might think, I don't know how that goes together, how that's relevant. It is. And so I think really thinking about that skill-based volunteering would be another piece.
Tami, what would you say?
Well, I agree with all of Kathy's thoughts there as well too. I would say to become better informed, to dig in, to visit your food pantry in your neighborhood and ask how you can help, or reach out. Most food pantries and the food bank and DMARC have online registration where you can just jump in and find a date that works for you. It can work for your team at work, your church group, your neighborhood, whatever, and create a group to come in and maybe learn a little bit about the organization and then do a volunteer shift. We offer that. I know DMARC offers that. There's no shortage of places. Most nonprofits would welcome them in to do, maybe a 10, 15 minute, this is what our organization does, and this is how you can help us. And then, a volunteer shift, which is wonderful team building. You can, and then after you do that, introduce us to 3 friends. That might agree with what we're doing. And I would be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't agree that people deserve food and nutritious food, and introduce them to us. We can do a group, we do these up close and personal groups where we just really teach, community members what it is we're doing. And I 100% agree with lifting the neighbor voice. We don't have an on-site pantry at the Food Bank of Iowa. So we rely on our partners who are wonderful communicators, like this is what we're seeing, this is what we need, and we do our best to make those decisions with, budget and deploying resources in the best, most efficient way to serve the people the way they would like to be served. But yeah, and of course, everybody will always say you can donate to the Food Bank of Iowa, you can donate to DMARC, you can donate to your neighborhood pantry or your neighborhood nonprofit. Everybody needs help right now. And whatever your expertise is that you can offer, and even if it is, hey, I want to bring 20 people in and we want to bag potatoes, that's great. They can chat while they're doing it. It's team building. It's wonderful. Another thing I don't know if the business community is aware of, but every $1 of SNAP that is spent in every community puts another $1.54 right back into that community. So SNAP is good for everyone. It's great for farmers, and it's great for grocers. It's great for kiddos going to school with proper nutrition, people going to work with proper nutrition. So Becoming informed, and you can do it any number of ways. And if you want to, help on a regular basis, we all have that option for you too.
And that's a great point you make about the SNAP, economic benefit. You think about, do you want, would you want for you or for your family to go to a food pantry and get a 3-day supply of food? Or would you rather take a card, go to the grocery store, use normal channels of commerce to get food for your family? It's incredibly efficient. It builds jobs. It supports the food industry. It's kind of a no-brainer for me.
I like the range of volunteer opportunities. I understand the need for skills-based volunteering. But I also, some of the best volunteer opportunities are completely unconnected to what you do in the rest of your life.
Yes.
If bagging potatoes, it's such an actionable thing, and you see the progress. It's not like writing 17 emails and then at the end of the day you think, what have I done?
Yes.
But I like the options there. That if you're an actuary, do that. It can be helpful. If you want to chat with your friends and bag potatoes, that is also useful.
Yeah.
So I think one of the takeaways of many, is that there are lots of ways for lots of people to jump in and help. I want to finish on one note. At the DMARC Spring Greens event at the warehouse, it was my first time there, and I had heard that there was discussion, do we need to move it offsite and have a fancy dinner? Or we could have it in the warehouse. You made the right choice, because just to see those walls of these towers of boxes that had been moved by a hardworking crew to set up tables. But I want to drill down on one thing you mentioned to the crowd there, and I'm sure you remind people of this, that hunger is a solvable challenge. Tell us, I want to ask both of you, what's it really going to take? In your opinion, how do we solve this thing that has been a long challenge for millennia? How do we do it?
You want to talk to that?
You can go first.
All right.
I'll let I know I'm going to say I agree. Yes.
So yeah, I liken hunger to like a Rubik's Cube, that if you turn the policies and the programs in the right direction and the right order, you can solve for it. I would say, unlike a Rubik's Cube, there's several different solutions. So there's different paths that we can go to get there. Because at the end of the day, food insecurity is about insufficient income. And so, we can solve it by doing things like creating incentives for people to build $150,000 homes. Because if you're earning $20 an hour, which is about triple the federal minimum wage, that's the mortgage you can afford. How do we, you know what I mean? So we can solve it through, I'm going to say indirect. We have to create an environment where people have more breathing room. And so that's either higher wages or lower expenses. It's math. And so the other piece is who does what? Do we want the federal government or the state government to be more involved in the solution? Do we want charity to be more involved in the solution, the business community? So I think, I'm not trying to be cagey with the question, but I think there's many different solutions, but we need to pick one. And when I say we, I mean Iowa. Iowa needs to pick one, agree on it, and aggressively work towards the goal. Because at the end of the day, hunger is an everything issue. Whatever you care about, hunger might not be your top issue, but whatever you care about is linked to hunger. So if you care about education and education reform, we can have the best teachers in the best classrooms with the best training and technology, and if they're standing in front of a room full of hungry kids, you're not getting your ROI. If you care about family values and family stability, hungry people are not the best parents or spouses. If you care about health and the cost of healthcare, as Tami mentioned, healthy food is a building block to that. And besides that, you think about our youngest Iowans, under 2, you're laying down myelin in your brain. If you have iron deficiency anemia, you're talking about lost IQ points that you never get back, no matter what the intervention is. So whatever it is, if you care about workforce issues, again, hungry people are going to be sick more, and they're not going to be as good of employees for you. They're not going to be able to show up. So I think people need to realize that this is an issue that we should care deeply about. We need to be aware of it and the reality of it. I think when people think about hunger, they think about the person on the side of the street with the cardboard sign, but you're probably more likely to be hungry if you're under the age of 5. And we have to really understand that, and we have to work together. And I think that collaboration is always the key. One of the best things about coming to DMARC and being in Iowa has been the collaboration. I met Tami, I don't know, a couple of weeks onto the job.
Yeah.
And Tami and I went out to lunch, and I was like, all right, this is going to be great. And we love working together.
Yeah.
We joke, we'll see each other a couple of times a week and then be like, well, shall we make plans on the weekend? Or, we're going to see each other for a couple of days.
What's next? Yeah.
So there's just the spirit of collaboration and looking at things I'm going to say in a logical way, like what is the right, intervention or activity for, different partners to play so that we do come together as that interwoven whole. I just think is really, really critical, and it's the most efficient.
Tami, how would you solve that Rubik's Cube?
Well, there are a number of different ways. I think the major thing is, as you said, we all need to be rowing in the same direction. The pick one and start working toward that. 10 years ago when I started at the food bank, we had 6 school pantries, and it was a pilot program, and today we have 190. So we're doing what we can to help those kiddos at school, but then we're coming into summer hunger where they're not getting the breakfast and lunch at school. We're grateful for summer EBT this year. That's wonderful. Definitely something that we need to have here. But SNAP, for every one meal that the charitable food system provides, SNAP provides 9. And we saw in November, when those SNAP benefit distributions were interrupted, just an influx of a 60% need overnight. We normally move about 100,000 pounds of food a day at Food Bank of Iowa, getting it out to partners. And they're the partners are doing the hard work, handing it to folks who need it, hearing their stories, and working with them and providing them service with dignity. And so, there is a who's doing what, and more does keep, landing in the lap of the charitable food system. And we just simply cannot bear that. There's just not a world there where we can provide 9 additional meals should SNAP continue to decline and become more and more difficult to receive and difficult to administer. So yes, finding that problem, and we know that food insecurity is a spoke on the wheel of poverty. Hunger is solved with food and nutritious food, but food insecurity is solved by policy, and that takes a lot of people rowing in the same direction. And there's just some discourse externally in our world right now, but hunger isn't a political issue. No matter what side you're on, or if you're apolitical, about everybody agrees that, kids and families and veterans and seniors, they deserve food and nutritious food to eat, to live a healthy life. So finding a way that we can all row in the same direction and working together is key. But yes, I believe it's solvable, or I wouldn't do this work,
Well, I think the other thing that occurred to me while you were talking is, I would really love for people to be curious, to not just, as human beings, we kind of jump to things like, our brain is organized by schema, right? So we jump, we hear one thing and we fill in a lot of blanks. And so that's the other thing I would ask, is for people just to be curious and ask questions. I always think, from where I sit, federal nutrition programs are the bedrock of responding to hunger. They have the scale and the efficiency that nothing else can meet. However, they're administered on the local level, right? So you hear about the school lunch program, think, oh, the government's paying for lunch. But what that means is a job for somebody at your kid's elementary school. And all of that food has to be grown in the United States. People don't realize that. That's all American grown food. So, and it's processed in the USDA. So in the USA. So it is, it really is economic, force. And so, I would again say to the business community, would you rather have 5 disconnected small business enterprises, or would you rather have a franchise of 5? One's a lot easier to manage than the other. And if you have the right store managers that are personalize it and get to know those local customers, having that efficiency, you can't beat it. And so I would say, I mean, I know this probably sounds odd for a conversation about hunger, but I think there really is efficiency to be gained. So then we have more resource to focus on the next thing.
I could ask you questions all day long, and I appreciate your emphasis on curiosity. I think both of you have opened up new ways to look at this challenge, and I think I just appreciate your willingness to unpack it a little bit and explain things. And we will keep coming up with the questions for you. Same thing for our audience. I'll just shout it out to whoever's listening. If you have suggestions for other topics or other guests, I'm already thinking about bringing you both back because I have more questions, and it's been really, really informative.
We can do it.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. Yeah.
Thank you both. Keep up the good work. I don't want to keep you longer because today you've got to move 100,000 pounds of food. So I appreciate you carving out some time to bring us up to speed a little bit, and I appreciate your good work and wish you all the best in your next tasks. So thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for having us. And
Yeah.
it's always good to spend time together.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right.